Raw Pacu filet is an acquired taste. Let's give omelets another chance. Last episode I presented my Pacu farms for the newly established critter mechanisms, but both farms have been aiming at producing Pacu filet, so you can make cooked fish in the process. But we did already calculate that the true calories lie with the fry eggs, giving us 2 kg of raw egg, resulting in 5600 kilocalories of omelette if cooked. Which is why I came up with 4 different setups to produce a whole bunch of eggs. The method we use to get Pacu eggs is simply not letting them hatch, with the only catch that we do have to retain enough eggs or Pacu to refill our Pacu ranches. I will call these Pacu reserve Pacu from now on. And the method we choose to retain those reserve Pacu is how we differentiate the 4 setups. Each setup is constructed from 4 elements. The Pacu Ranch itself, which is pretty much the same in every setup, the omelette cooking system, the empty room / area for automatic fish food distribution, and the distinctive feature of the reserve Pacu or reserve egg retainment method, plus the Pacu refill method, which in most cases is connected. In the top left corner you can see the drop variant, keeping the reserve Pacu in a tiny room on top. In the middle left you can see the pressure plate weight plate variant, keeping the reserve Pacu in egg form on a pressure plate. Here on the lower left we have the manual variant, keeping the reserve Pacu in a small room with manual critter traps, requiring attention from the duplicants for the delivery and refilling. On the right we have the conveyor rail loop variant, keeping the reserve Pacu in egg form on a conveyor rail loop. Here is a quick overview. The drop version keeps the reserve Pacu on top and drops it down once needed. The pros are a quick refill because of the individually separated refill mechanism. The cons are the eggshells from the hatched Pacu as well as the occasional meat they drop is either lost in the room above or very material intensive to get out. The pressure plate version keeps the reserve Pacu in egg form on a pressure plate or weight plate. The pros are easy switching between Pacu filet and Pacu eggs, simply by just changing the value on the pressure plate. The lower the value, the more eggs, the higher the value, the more Pacu. The cons are a slightly slower refill speed, as well as a higher value of the accidentally occasional Pacu filet. The manual version keeps the reserve Pacu and reserve eggs in a separated room. The pros are it is simple to set up, the refilling happens quickly depending on your duplicants, and the cons are you are dependent on your duplicants. The conveyor loop version keeps the reserve eggs on a conveyor loop, which is timed to rotate ever so often. The pros are that you technically produce 0 Pacu filet with this setup, because the eggs are only dispensed when you actually need them, and if you don't need them, they're fed back into the system. The cons are the slowest refill speed of 5 cycles, which might lead to you underproducing eggs in the process. You might have already noticed the top left room changing from being empty to being a fish food delivery system, which is exactly why the room is there in the first place. You can add such a system to each and every one of the setups. It just consists of an auto sweeper, a conveyor rail loader with a higher priority than the storage bins, and 1 conveyor receptacle per Pacu Ranch. The conveyor loader is set to seeds or algae depending on what you feed your Pacu. Every single one of these setups is perfectly viable and worked for over, let's check this. I placed an aqua tuner here when I first started them so I can check the age. 268 cycles for the lower 3 setups and 151 cycles for the top left one. Before I show you every setup in detail, you can see the rough size of each setup by the numbers that I wrote with pipes next to each setup. The drop setup size depends on whether you want the eggshell collection system for the reserve Pacu or not. And of course you can increase the Pacu Ranch room size however you like, as long as the auto sweeper still can reach every important part. And here you have the size for the conveyor rail loop setup. The amount of Pacu that I put in every ranch is visible in the gas pipe overlay. I did use less Pacu for the manual version, because I made the Pacu Ranch slightly smaller. You can of course make it the same size as in the other setups. I will now show you in detail how every single setup and module works, so if you're interested in any specific one, check out the timestamps with the according names, and please leave a like and comment for the video because I have been working on this for a few weeks by now. Let's start with one of my favorites, the simple drop version. The dropper design is made by Olsen from the Discord server. The rest has been adapted to fit my setup. First we do have the module part number 1, the Pacu Ranch itself, only consisting of a water fort which is 3x3 tiles in size, then either the storage bin or the conveyor receptacle with 2 tiles which is filled with algae or seeds, or if you use a conveyor receptacle it is set to absolutely nothing because the conveyor receptacle is filled externally by the conveyor loader, set to algae or seeds as well. Coming back to this setup, we have the conveyor loader with the size of 2 tiles. The conveyor loader is set to absolutely everything besides algae, and if you want to use seeds, besides seeds. And a critter sensor, which you can place either here or directly under the pneumatic door. Of course, you will need a fish feeder to feed all of your Pacu or tropical Pacu or the gulp fry. And then we can switch to the next module of the setup, which in this case is the Pacu retainment area, so the reserve Pacu. We do have this critter sensor set to below 2, meaning we will have 1 critter in here. Technically it would be 2, but since this conveyor rail has 1 space of air, this counts a little different, because any egg that comes through will already be counted as a critter or an egg, because we set this to count critter and count eggs. So even though this is set to below 2, it technically means exactly 1. So this area here retains exactly 1 tropical Pacu. To refill this area, that can hold 3 tropical Pacu. 2 because for each 8 tiles of liquid we can have 1 Pacu, so 2 here, and 1 more because of the water fort, giving us the cozy happiness plus 1 buff, allowing for 3 nice and a little bit crowded Pacu, still with a happiness of 4. Here we are again at the critter sensor. This one is set to count the critter, don't count the eggs, because the eggs will be transported out of the room immediately once they are laid. This is set to below 3, so if we do have not enough Pacu, let's grab this Pacu here, throw it out, then this door here will open. This is done with a simple automation. Let me show you this again, because this just refilled when you didn't look, so let's check this here. If we don't have enough Pacu, this door will open, the Pacu will recognize the water tile down here, flop towards the water and drop down. Then the door will close again. Don't confuse this with a horizontal door that is closed, because Pacu just do not care. As you can see here. Where's my Pacu? There you are. You go back there and tiny Pacu goes back up here. So back to the automation. The automation for the top is not just the critter sensor that is set to below 2, but is also connected to an AND gate. And we also have a filter connected to the AND gate, set to tropical fry egg. You can also set this to regular fries, giving you the normal Pacu, or set this to gulp fry eggs, giving you the gulp fry, depending on whatever temperature you have in your base. The AND gate just checks that only open the conveyor chute if there is below 2 critter or eggs inside of this room, and the material that is coming through the conveyor rail right here is actually an egg. There's a tropical fry egg, drop it inside of this room. The auto sweeper picks it up, puts it in the conveyor loader, transports it upwards, and if there are not enough eggs or critter in this room, the conveyor chute will open and drop the tropical fry egg. If there are enough in this room, the auto sweeper will pick it up, throw it in, transport it upwards, check again, but this time leave it closed, and then send it to the next room. As you can see, all of these ranches are connected, which means that only the right one only has 1 chance of getting an egg. This one has the chance of getting an egg from the right chamber or from its own chamber. This one has a chance of getting an egg from its own chamber or the 2 chambers to the right, and so on and so forth. I connected them up like this. If we deconstruct this, this is how they are connected. The white under the white and the green aims to the left to the next chamber. That's it for the automation for this part. Now let's go to the next module, the omelette cooking chamber. This conveyor chute will drop all the eggs that we have as an excess from this whole farm setup, meaning every egg that is too much from any of these farms will go through this loop and be dropped down here. When it is dropped, the auto sweeper will decide where it will put the material that dropped. If it is an eggshell or anything that is not a critter egg, it will put it in the conveyor loader. The conveyor loader is set to everything but no critter eggs and no raw egg, because it will grab every egg that will fall down and put it in this storage bin, which is why we do have so many eggs inside of here. The storage bin is set to critter eggs, nothing else. The priority is a little bit higher than anything else. The eggs inside here will break after a while. Since they already heated up to 84 degrees, they will almost instantly turn into an omelette. If they don't turn into an omelette, they will heat up slowly and then turn into an omelette. Let me show you that. Let's grab a raw egg and drop it inside of here. There we have the raw egg. We go to properties and we can see that the temperature is rising quickly, and once it hits 73 degrees or 72, we will have a nice omelette. Omelettes, of course, will also be transported via the conveyor rail. This conveyor loader puts it up here and transports it to your infinite storage, which is where I can then count the calories. I did, by the way, count every single calorie, Pacu, Polo the Dirt and so on for the whole 270 cycles that this is now running. And now to the changes that we can do to this setup. First, if you want to pick up the material that you can occasionally find in these top 3 tiles here that you cannot reach, you can pretty easily just remove those tiles, replace them with a door, put an auto sweeper here on top at this place, add 2 more conveyor loaders, for example right here and right here, connect them up with the conveyor rail and connect the conveyor rail to here. Then you just set them to everything but critter eggs, no critter eggs. Copy this, copy that, hook it up to your grid. And now you're able to collect everything that is not a Pacu or an egg. But this is pretty costly, and that is the case why I didn't show it in the first place. But of course you can try to fit that in for yourself. The next addition that you can make, I already mentioned that, is of course the automatic refill system for the algae. All of these storage bins house algae. This one is set to algae or to seeds. The auto sweeper prioritizes the conveyor loader because we set the priority higher than to the storage bins. And then the algae is being transported to each and every one of the conveyor receptacles down here. As you can see, this is a simple line connecting all of the conveyor receptacles with nothing else specially added. The power overlay, heat, these are the liquids. This here is the automation with this critter sensor set to below 3 and count critter, and this here is set to below 2 and count critter and count eggs, and the conveyor rail element sensor is set to tropical fry. You can also set this to Pacu fry or to gulp fry. And you can also change the values however you like in the top area and change the values from 1 to 3 in the lower area, but not more. And this here is the conveyor rail setup. The conveyor loaders again are set to everything but don't pick up what feeds the Pacu. And this here is set to critter eggs, and this here is set to everything but not critter eggs and not raw eggs. And if you want to implement the automatic refill of the algae and seeds, set this to algae and seeds with a higher priority than your storage bin for algae and seeds. And since we already talked about that, fill your fish feeder with exactly that. And now off to the next version, the pressure plate version. It differentiates itself from the other version by having the reserve Pacus sit on top of this weight plate in form of eggs. The Pacu Ranch area or the Pacu Ranch module is pretty much the same. It is 16 tiles in size, so it can house 2 Pacu plus the one from the water fort. We do have the storage bin with the algae inside of here, which you need to place in before you build this, or just replace the whole thing with a conveyor receptacle setup as shown before. You do have enough place here in the top left to achieve that. This setup is controlled by a simple critter sensor set to below 3, only count the critter. The critter sensor itself directly connects to the door. Even though it passes the filter gate, it is still directly connected to the door, meaning if below 3 Pacu, the door will open, and because this door is open, this will allow any hatched Pacu fry to drop inside of here. So how will the door to the left open? For that reason we do have the filter gate. The filter gate counts the seconds, it counts to 5. The amount really doesn't matter, this is just so we do have a one directional signal and the signal doesn't travel back for no other reason. Which is why all of these are connected the same way. It is just if a single one of these is green, send the green signal, and a green signal will travel to this mechanized airlock door. And the signal will also travel a little bit here in a circle, go into a NOT gate, and it will automatically close the other door here to the left. So you only ever have one of these mechanized airlocks open. So let's see that. If I unpause the game, this should open, this should close after 5 seconds. And there we have it. So any Pacu that will now, let me show you this, any Pacu that will now hatch here to the left will try to get to this water pocket here on the right. It will drop into the open door, refill the room, the door will close, this door will close, and the door to the left will open. Any egg that a Pacu will lay will get picked up by the auto sweeper, placed in the conveyor loaders that are reachable by the auto sweepers through this corner here, placed inside of them. Conveyed to the left will travel over 2 conveyor bridges placed in a way like this, just on top of the rail. I can't really remember if they were 100% necessary, which will slow down the way the eggs travel. This helps a little bit with the detection here. If we do not have enough eggs on the weight plate and the egg that is traveling through is a Pacu fry egg or whatever Pacu egg you set the filter to, as shown by this AND gate here, if the weight is correct and we do have a fry egg, then it will open the conveyor chute and drop down the fry egg. And here we are already at one of the benefits and one of the negatives of this whole setup. I for myself set this so it is at 48 kilograms because each egg weighs 4 kilograms and 48 divided by 4 is 12, giving us enough Pacu to automatically refill each and every single one of these Pacus if they all die at the same time, which is totally unrealistic. This was not necessary in the slightest. You can set this to a way lower value. If we do the same as we did with the drop version, we would set this to 4 times 4, which is 16. Could you just let me type this? Come on game, thank you. Then we throw back the eggs and we would only get 4 eggs on the weight plate. The benefit of this is that we can use more of these precious eggs and make omelettes out of them compared to getting a lot of Pacu fillet. Another benefit of this setup is that you can easily switch from making Pacu fillet to getting omelettes out of this, simply by changing the value here on the pressure plate. The lower the value, the more egg and the more omelette you get. The higher the value, the more Pacu you get, because the Pacus will hatch here, and if you do not need them in any of these areas here to the right, none of the doors will open. This door will be closed, this door will be open. The Pacu will automatically pathfind to the next water tile, not the water tile to the right because that is blocked off. So the Pacu will flop here and be ready to die of old age, or to be ready to be killed by your duplicants. For example, we do have 14 critter inside of here, 13 critter at the moment, and only 4 eggs here on the pressure plate, which is enough to refill this. And if we do not need any of these hatched fries, they will drop to the left and end up as Pacu fillet. If you are wondering what the automatic dispenser is for, if any of these fry eggs hatch, they leave behind the egg, and because I like to use that instead of leaving them lying around, I placed a auto sweeper right here that can only reach the automatic dispenser and the eggs, not the tiles here to the left, and I set the automatic dispenser to everything but critter eggs. You technically do have to care because the eggshells do weigh something and they would just give you a wrong kilogram number here if you do not remove them properly. A slight change I did to the omelette module right here is that the auto sweeper is able to grab from this tile in case our Pacus die of old age and turn into Pacu meat or Pacu fillet like this. The auto sweeper is able to pick it up, put it in your conveyor loader and automatically send it off to your infinite food storage. Of course, same here as for the other setup, you can have the storage bin replaced with a conveyor receptacle. Now to the overlays. This is the power overlay, the automation overlay. Remember, these here are filter gates. The number that you put in doesn't really matter. This here is a NOT gate, which is just there to, if this door is open, this is closed. If this door is closed, this door is open. This here is an AND gate that checks if the value of your weight plate and the value of your conveyor rail element sensor are green, and if they are green, then open the conveyor chute and drop down the fry egg. The value for the critter sensor is set to below 3 critter, only count critter. That's it for this setup, and off we go to the next setup, the manual version. I just removed the conveyor receptacles, so it is the easiest version of itself. In difference to the other versions, I tried this to be a slightly bit smaller, so our Pacu Ranch area modules are only 12 tiles in size. Of course, you can also make them 16 tiles, but then you need to change the values a slightly bit. This works a little bit different because we do need the duplicants that of course are running away of hunger. First, you do have the duplicants refilling the fish feeder. Of course, you can also have an auto sweeper do the same task, but since I have the rest manual, why not have the dupes do that as well? Come on dupes, go and eat something. Since this setup uses a slightly smaller ranch area, we can only house 2 Pacus here. 1 Pacu for the 8 tiles of liquid, this is not enough for 2, and another Pacu for the water fort inside of it. The auto sweeper collects everything that drops down. For this we do have automation in form of this conveyor loader set to everything but algae and seeds. It will grab any egg that will drop inside of this room. Let's show this by grabbing one of these eggs. If we do have egg drop inside of the room, the egg will be transported to a conveyor loader, conveyed to the left, sent to this conveyor bridge, which, same as before, is just placed on top of the rail to make a little bit more spacing here for this conveyor rail element sensor to pick up the eggs a little bit better, but you probably can leave that out if I'm not completely mistaken. It will then pass over this conveyor rail element sensor, which is again connected with an AND gate, as well as this critter sensor connected to the same AND gate, and both of them are connected to the conveyor chute, as can be seen here. Let's test the reserve Pacu room. So I have a few eggs here, let's just throw them here in different areas. This room is only at 8 instead of 10. The eggs are being collected and sent over. One egg is being dropped, another egg is sent away. Because we are already at 10 of 10. This number is way too high, by the way. I was overly cautious with this. I am pretty sure you can just set this to 4, which also gets rid of the problem that we might get too much of this Pacu compared to the eggs. Even though this was one of the best setups in the testing. So how does the refilling work? Let's just grab a Pacu and throw it inside this hot room. You can see that Mr. Steve is picking up the Pacu from the fish trap and throwing it in the fish release. The fish release is set to maximum of 2 critters. Check for all the Pacu variants. That is the same for each and every one of these fish releases. Since they fixed the fish release and it now finally counts properly, if this here is a room, the dupes will automatically refill the room with the correct Pacu that you set it to right here. And because the fish traps are also a manual task, I set it to a priority of 9. The duplicants will come by and just catch the next Pacu. So the Pacus are ready for refilling. Let's just throw out a few of those Pacu here. Wait a bit. And there we go, the dupes already refilled all of the little modules. I don't know what's wrong with this Pacu though, just stop it. So much for the reserve Pacu and for the refill mechanism. And now to the rest of the setup. All the eggs that are not needed in the refill reserve Pacu mechanism will be conveyed to the omelette production room, like in every other setup as well. From there, they will, once turned into omelettes, then be transported into your infinite storage, wherever that is in your base. Like this. If you want to, you can have your fish be automatically fed. Let me just show you how you can implement that. You place a conveyor loader right here, an auto sweeper right here, a storage bin in this tile, allow for algae or for seeds, set this to a lower priority than the conveyor loader, set the conveyor loader to algae as well, connect them up with power and connect them up with a rail right here on top. And just grab one of these conveyor receptacles and place them right next to the conveyor loaders. With that we only need to add a little bit more algae and the auto sweeper will take care of the refilling. Now you can leave this area for a dupe to live, or you make a larger filler system here to the left with a lot more storage bins, however you like, hence the modular design. And because the auto sweepers down here can also reach these 4 tiles, they will be able to refill the fish feeder. And there you go. And the last version that I have for you today is the conveyor loop version. The reserve Pacus are in egg form and on a cycle-based rotating conveyor loop system, which is the most complicated system in terms of refilling, but technically has a 100% egg usage rate. I say technically because this has been running for over 265 cycles and I redesigned it in between a few times. And also this freaking door has been missing because I copied the design over and this did not copy correctly, so it screwed up my counting that I will show you at the end. As you've just seen, this door opened because one of the Pacu died of old age. This door now opens as well. This door here to the left closes. And now we just wait for the cycle sensor to tell this here to open after it cycles around. The cycle sensor is this one here to the right and this one here to the left. The sensor here to the right is set to a single second every cycle. So let's see when that happens right now. And there's the egg drop. And now in 5 cycles we will be able to refill this area right here, which already tells us the biggest negative of this setup here, the very long refill time that we need of 5 cycles every time a Pacu dies. Of course you can prevent this by just setting the timer to 2 cycles, and no matter what, just drop a Pacu every 2 cycles. After around 50 cycles, this will have evened out so perfectly that no matter what you do, all of your ranches will get refilled at almost the perfect time when you need it. I just couldn't wait for that long, and you will pretty much screw up your egg production for the first 50 cycles, so I didn't want to do that. Why the conveyor loop, you might ask? Well, the eggs that are kept on the conveyor loop, if the eggs on the conveyor loop would try to hatch, they do not hatch, they will break and it will drop the raw egg, meaning we will get the raw egg even from the eggs, which is why this system has the least potential of waste. The issue is that if an egg hatches and breaks to a raw egg on the conveyor rail, it will leave behind this freaking little empty caskets here. You cannot get rid of them unless you rotate them through a conveyor shutoff or a conveyor bridge. So if they're stationary, they will stay there forever and pretty much ruin your setup, which is why there is a second timer sensor set to 11 seconds every cycle, which will do the following. If I reset this, keep an eye on this egg here. There is a Pacu fry egg at 26.9 degrees Celsius behind this tile here, and will stop almost at the same place or exactly at the same place, depending on the lag you have, the speed you're playing at, and what cycle you are at. And now you see that all the baskets or caskets, or however they're called, are gone. We do have 9 eggs here on hold. You can increase or decrease that however you like, but technically you can make that even smaller if you wanted to. So let's go over all of the modules. Classic standard module for the Pacu Ranch, 16 tiles, 1 water fort, can house 3 Pacu, storage bin set to algae or seed, or if you want to, you can replace that with a conveyor receptacle setup like this and have that down here connected up with a conveyor rail and place down the conveyor loader either in this area here or in this area. The automation for this is exactly the same as the pressure plate version here to the left. We do have the critter sensor set to count to 3. If below 3, only count the critters. Then activate the door, like here to the left. Have a filter gate, send the green signal if any of these 4 has a green signal to this door. If green signal, open door. Connect it to a NOT gate. The NOT gate deactivates the other door here to the left, meaning only the right door or the left door is open at the same time. And then it is also at the same time connected to an AND gate if there is a green signal. And we are in the 1 second per cycle timer setup. Then send the green signal further and open the conveyor chute. This will automatically drop exactly 1 egg because we do have the eggs here on hold. And the 1 second is there that you have, well, exactly 1 egg. Shorter does not drop any, and more does drop more eggs if you want that. As for the automation here to the left, we do have a conveyor rail element sensor set to fry egg. Every time there's a fry egg detected, send it here in this loop. This will happen until the loop is filled, and every other egg will be sent down here to the left to our Omelette cooking system, which works the same as every other system. Storage bin set to critter eggs, and this is set to everything but critter eggs and but raw eggs. Everything that you produce will be sent up to your infinite storage. Back to the overlays. This is the power overlay, heat, the automation overlay. This here is just to count how many critters are here. This is not connected to anything. The timer sensor 11 and 600, and this timer sensor is 1 and 600. You can change the 11 depending on the size of your loop. And this here is the setup for the conveyor rails. Let me show you this here in detail because it is hard to see. If I remove this conveyor shutoff here, you can see it is not connected. It is just placed on top like this. This conveyor bridge is also not connected. It is placed on top right here. And this conveyor shutoff should technically also look like this. Like this. Let's test this again. Throw in the egg, reset the timer, dropping an egg, nice, rotating the egg with this timer. Ah yes, now the rotating is much smoother. Yeah, I accidentally connected those two here, giving them a wrong timing. So you might set this to, let's say, 9 seconds. Reset the timer, check this again. We do have an egg here at 28 degrees Celsius, which is this one. Plopped up here, 28 still. Going down, going to the left, going up, now at 27.9. 27.9, it is in the same spot. So if you have this set up like this, set this to 9 and 600. And those are my 4 versions for the Pacu egg and omelette farm, or ranch, however you want to call it. You can either use that to help you with your own design, or just build them like they are on screen. All of them work perfectly fine, as you can see by the numbers that I will now put up on screen. The only one that I'm not completely sure about is the last one I've shown. But I wouldn't get hung up on the numbers, because they're not really that representative, considering that a factor that is mostly influencing the number of Pacu eggs that you get is the number of reserve Pacu that you try to hold in your reserve areas. The smaller the number, the more eggs you will get. So we wasted a lot of good Pacu eggs on unnecessary reserve Pacus. Be aware that basically the number of reserve Pacus that you put in the setup as a value has the biggest influence on how much eggs you get out of each of these setups, and less the setup itself. Every variant has the potential to outrank the other variants depending on the value that you put for the reserve Pacu, except for maybe the last setup. I'm not really sure about that one. If you actually managed to make it to this point, you got my biggest respect. Thank you all for watching, and if you want to leave a like for the effort that I put into this video, I would be very glad about that. And a special thanks to all the patrons and members here on the screen. Love you guys, and Luma out.